Hello, my friends. Welcome to this bonus special catch-up, check-in episode of the Running For Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know in many ways it's actually a bit overstimulating with how much there is coming out, and so many people want to help. So many people are just giving things, trying to do things to make their community feel better. And I too wanted to do my part. I did have a Facebook Live within my Running For Real Superstars community, and I really enjoyed that connection. It's crazy that me talking into a screen, or like in this situation, me talking into a microphone can make me feel connected to you, but it does. Like in that Facebook Live, I was able to see the comments coming through, and that made me feel this connection to you. And this podcast, seeing the COVID one I did with Dr Emily Stoneman, where she answered our questions. And then afterwards, I kind of talked to you about what to do if your race was cancelled or postponed. Seeing the response from that just made me feel so grateful for this community, just wanting to do more. And, I know many of us are struggling in various ways, and it may flip up and down with how you are feeling. Some moments I'm feeling, happy and grateful for my family and having this special time together that we can be inside and just as one. But then other moments, I'll see something on Twitter or something and I will be so overwhelmed. So I wanted to do something that we could listen to, and someone that we could learn from, who really understands how to get us out of this kind of stress spiral that we can be in. So I reached out to the person that I look up to the most. I've mentioned many times Michael Gervais is someone that I just really, really believe in. And so I wanted to get him on the show. He has an incredibly packed schedule right now, as in his day is broken up into 20-minute segments. And so I was able to get a little 20-minute conversation with him, which I'm going to share with you in just a minute. But, I wanted to get his advice. I wanted to give something that we can use in the future over the coming weeks to kind of calm us down, to get us through, maybe something to start practicing and trying, but hearing it from him would be so much more powerful. If you do enjoy these episodes, I would love to hear from you. Maybe you could share them. Maybe you could let me know, send me an email. But sharing is probably the primary that I would see. If you do enjoy this episode, maybe I'll start doing this once a week. Every Monday, we could have like a check-in. I'll say how I'm feeling. You could check in with me how you're getting on, and we could have an expert to kind of help us through, how we're feeling and this kind of stress that is all around us. I don't know if you guys can hear right now, but my daughter is right outside the door trying to get in. So apologies if you can hear banging around in a child's voice, but this is part of being at home with a child, right? So yes, I wanted to bring you this conversation with Michael Gervais, and afterwards, if you could stay tuned for something that I do have to offer for those of you who are having a really tough time. You'll hear Michael talk about some suggestions of places he would say to go to work with someone, but I actually have set up something so that if you are having a hard time right now, I've reached out to all my friends who are psychologists, mental health professionals. I didn't reach out to Michael because he was already doing this for me. I reached out to all these people, and many of them are willing to help. If you give me your email, I will give your email to them, and they will reach out to you. One of them will reach out to you and just check in with you, speak to you, maybe talk on the phone. I don't know, depending on the situation, but if you need someone to be there for you, I'll be telling you more about that at the end of the episode. But before we go any further, I know this is very unorganized and scattered with my thoughts, but as you guys probably know, I am pretty organized in general. I've actually already recorded all the way through June 19th is the episode I have recorded up to at this point. So I don't do things last minute, but I really want to do something to kind of talk about the moment that we're in right now. And I know how much you guys appreciated the episode with Dr. Emily Stoneman about COVID and how that affects runners. And also then I talked afterwards about what to do if your race is cancelled or postponed, which most people are in that situation right now. If you did miss that one, you could go to tinamuir.com/COVID-19, and that will give you the podcast. You can also get the guide from there. It's a written version. If you'd rather download that, and I put a worksheet at the end so you can figure out a plan. Okay, so let's go meet Michael Gervais for this quick little conversation, but I really hope it helps you to think about what you can do in this situation. I know it is stressful, but hopefully this episode with him will help. Let's go meet him. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today on the Running For Real podcast on this special bonus report episode, whatever we want to call it. But I know you are a very, very busy guy, so I'm so thankful you are here today. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, I'm happy to be here with you, Tina. Thank you.
Yeah, this is, not a conversation I expected us to be having. And I'm sure, as I said, you've been pulled in many directions with your kind of expertise and services needed all over to calm people down. But I want to start, this is going to be a short, little, quick, to the point episode. My goal here is to reassure people, to show people that, yes, this is scary. Yes, we're all scared, including you, as someone who, makes people feel better for a living. But we can get through this together. And by talking about it, that only helps. So the biggest thing, I think, of all, let's just start there, that people seem to be kind of festering over, and I have to admit that I'm doing it too at times, is worry for the future. What is going to happen? We have no way of controlling this, no way of knowing what 1 month's going to look like, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months. So what have you found from your experience and your own what's going on inside is going to help the most for people who just really find it hard to see everything foggy out in front of them?
Well, first I want to start by saying it is difficult and challenging times for many. And what's difficult and challenging is the sense of uncertainty. That's one. There's financial concerns that are happening that are real. And there are medical conditions that are starting to take place and impact people's families. So the change is real. The future is uncertain. And that combination creates an incredible uptick in anxiety for people. And if there are any underlying medical conditions that people are dealing with, and when we say that phrase, we typically think physically, but if there are underlying medical conditions as well, it's an uptick there as well. So anxiety, depression, fill in the blanks, sleep disorders, bipolar, if there's stuff going on, it's likely being tickled right now, if not exacerbated. So, times are hard right now for people, and folks in your community that are likely healthy because they've dedicated their life towards fitness and movement. And, there hasn't been a better time where health is paying dividends other than right now. So there's two fronts this war is being met on. There's the front line, and then there's the home front. And the front line is like all the tactics and strategies about keeping your hands clean and social distancing. And then the home front is really where this thing's met, which is the immune system. And so, again, those in your community that have invested in their immunity, meaning that they care about recovery, that they're having a distinct advantage right now. And so what does that mean? That means doing things that amplify your recovery from the natural stresses of the day are a competitive advantage for life right now. And what are those things? Sleeping, you mentioned them earlier, sleeping well, eating, drinking, and hydrating well, moving well. And right now, I wouldn't say go tax yourself, unless you're feeling incredibly strong and vibrant, but something every day to get your heart rate up, something maybe a little bit more taxing than what you could do to carry a conversation, somewhere in that range. And then making sure that you're thinking optimally as well. So those are kind of the basic strategies. And underneath that think well strategy, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're becoming more aware of our own thoughts. And if you could oversimplify how thoughts work, is that some thoughts create expansion and freedom and space, and other thoughts create constriction and tension. And if something outside of you, like a newscast, is saying something that's triggering constriction in you, it's actually not what they said. It's what you've done with the information, which is your thinking strategy and patterns. So you are 100% responsible for the way that you're feeling and the way that you are engaging with a high stress conversation that's happening around us. So to make it super concrete is there's two places to get better. One is have a better inventory about what it feels like to be in your body. And when you notice some sort of tension or constriction, call it stress, then breathing is an excellent inoculation.
What kind of things would someone see this as? For someone who's never really looked internally and really thought about this. I mean, the obvious one is tensing up. You can feel like my nails went into my harm there. But what are other things when you say about constriction would people feel it as?
Yeah, it's a good question. So let's just do a quick little science, is that there's no redundancies in our brain. So the same parts of our brain that are responsible for fleeing from a tiger or bracing ourselves, under attack, are the same types of centers that are happening right now when we're getting news that things are scary. And that center is called the fight, flight, freeze mechanism. And, more specifically, it's the limbic system and the amygdala. So the same parts of your brain that are responsible for survival are activating now. And so those responses, to answer your point more succinctly, those responses are tension. So tension in the hands and muscles, tension in the neck, tension in the jaw, tension in the hips and glutes and feet and toes. So there's muscle tension. Then there's also a change in breathing. So breathing rate increases and it moves closer up into our upper lungs, our chest. There is a sense of nausea or butterflies that can come. There's a heart rate changes, so an uptick in heart rate. And actually, this, and your community is probably familiar with this, but your heart rate doesn't just elevate, it becomes more, the technical term is there's less variability, so there's a more standard heartbeat, which is an indication of stress. So those are some of the ones that take place. If you notice that you have a bit of a cotton mouth, that's another one. If you notice that you're just feeling unsettled or scratchy, is a way that people describe it that are anxious. If you feel like it's hard to take a deep breath, no, it's not that it's hard to take a deep breath. It's that you want to take a deep breath. Those are all indications of some amplified internal stress responses.
Okay. And then to that, you said about breathing before I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, breathing's a radical strategy, but there's two ways to manage this. One is to take an inventory of yourself, and if you feel unsettled in any way, is that breathing is a great strategy. And so there are lots of different ways to do breathing. And the essence of a thoughtful breath, a deep breath, if you will, is that it starts in the lower lung and then moves to the upper lung. And if you can do it through your nose, there's some research that that's more effective. And you want your exhale to be longer than your inhale. And that sends a signal to your brain like, hey, we're okay right now. We've got the luxury of a long breath. We're okay. Mm-hmm. And so that's the first strategy. The second strategy is when you notice that your mind is getting ahead of you. What if? That's an okay thing, because you're trying to plan and sort out and predict how the future might go. But do it once and write it down, write a solution down. That's really a fantastic use of your brain and your mind. But if you find yourself continue to ruminate about what if, and it feels like you've been down this storyline before, then that's a moment to say, wait, hold on. This is anxiousness now. It's no longer serving the utility of exploring an answer. And then say, okay, well, let me actually get out of the thought rumination and get into action. What can I do today? So you shorten the runway. And if that still feels anxious, then what can I do in this next hour? And now notice I'm taking it from thought to doing. And then if that still feels like there's too much energy, what can I do right now to change the way that I'm engaging in life? And that might be a breath. It might be going for a walk. It might be fill in the blanks. It might be petting your animal. It might be phoning somebody up. Those are all strategies. But the idea is to go from way out there to right now. Mm-hmm. And that's how we're going to win against the chronic stress battle that the virus is challenging our immunities with.
Do you see this being something that is going to affect us long term, physically and mentally, with just the stress that it's putting on us potentially for months on end?
I do. And I think that before this pandemic and the response is that people were already chronically stressed. And we were squeezing every hour, every minute out of the day, playing this bet that we need to do more, we need to achieve more. And the bet is that I'll forego an hour of sleep to do more. And the level of chronic stress for people was high. I mean, if we just look at our incoming freshmen and sophomores, depression, anxiety were at an all-time high. Suicidality was high. And so mental health is a real challenge for people because of that need to do more. Right now, we're at a level set reset where we're saying, hey, do less, be more. Be what? Be more you. Be more grounded, be more present, be more connected to people. And so that's happening right now. And so there's an important inflection point that's taking place. And the response is about reconnecting to the present moment, emptying the cup of stress, if you will, by breathing, by taking action in healthy ways. And if you can, get into a place where you're finding celebration and joy in the present moments that you're in, because way out there, it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And, you mentioned about that, like bringing it home. We've heard that a lot. And I've also been saying about, being in this moment. And in some ways, I have kind of almost enjoyed this time because it has put me in a little bubble with my family. And I've, been forced to actually be present, to be creative, not just sit and watch my daughter running around, but actually like, what can I do to make her, give her something new to do? But there's a lot of people who also feel a lot of guilt because they're maybe not enjoying this time with their family, kind of feeling trapped or claustrophobic, want to get out back into the world and doing things for themselves. Or maybe people don't like this isolation. I feel very cut off. I really am struggling with that, but they feel selfish for feeling that way because I know people are on the front lines. I know people are out there risking their lives. And who am I to say that I'm not enjoying something that so many people would give anything to have a family or give anything to be at home, to be able to work as they please?
Yeah, I think it's a complicated time. There's going to be lots of emotions that come up, and the whole spectrum of emotions. There's lots of them. And I would oversimplify this for folks that are not, let's say, sophisticated in emotions, and we could just make it simple, that there's 4 basic emotions. There is anger. So think about it as a scale, right? There's lots of anger, little anger, and there's words for each one of those. Mm-hmm. There's fear, and there's lots of fear and little fear, and there's lots of words that we use in between those. And then there is sadness, and there's a range, and then there's joy. And so if we oversimplified these mechanisms of emotions, they're fine. It's just the question, and it's an important part of life. Like, feel them, get to know them, learn them, and then understand the thought patterns that are preceding those emotional states, and then work with those thoughts. So use the emotions as an indicator to say, oh, how am I thinking about this? Oh, I'm thinking like I should do more. But actually, what I want to do right now is be more connected. This is the tension I'm feeling. I want to be more connected to my family, but I feel like I shouldn't be, or whatever that narrative is. So if you begin to work with the narrative as opposed to just the emotions, that will be helpful. And then eventually you'll be able to work with both of them together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And, related to that, how have you felt? I mean, you obviously you were someone who was traveling all over doing these talks. Your business, your brand is exploding right now. And then I'm assuming all of a sudden you are in and home and, obviously being pulled in a lot of directions through online things, but still probably a lot more time at home than you have in a while. And when you and I last talked, you kind of said about that guilt you felt from being away from family. So how are you handling it?
Yeah, thank you. I am, I've got 2 parts. One is there's the narrative in my brain about, okay, so how is business going to be impacted by this? Because I make a living working with people across the planet. And mm-hmm. So like I've got that narrative that I sorted out. And again, I use that strategy to come back to like, okay, what can I do right now? And so I'm using this as a moment to pivot. And it's been wonderful to be with my family. It's been awesome. It's been incredible. And like we're figuring it out together. And so there's a blessing inside of it. There's a silver lining, which is the connection that we're taking. We're going to need each other across the planet, and my family's, we're acting accordingly. We need each other to get through this thing. So, there's a stress narrative around how my businesses will be impacted, and there's also the opportunity to be close. And so that's typical for the dynamic nature of being a human. It's mm-hmm. not as simple as just one pure experience. Like, it's multidimensional, multifaceted.
Yeah.
And I do find myself getting, and I've been training 25 years in mindfulness and psychological skills as a psychologist in high performing environments. And I still find myself saying, oh, wow, I feel it in my chest. Wait a minute. I just am so thankful that I know the value of breathing and the value of awareness. And so right now, if your folks are new to this training of psychology, it's a great time. This is a great time to start. And there's more resources available than there ever have been. Whether it's, I'm not affiliated with any of the companies like Talkspace or whatever, but you can call your local psychologist in your area and find a referral. They're doing telepsychology right now. Mm-hmm. So they've been highly trained to deal with these conditions, and they will make a massive difference. And I think people have this idea that psychology is only for the depressed. That's been changing the last 30, 40 years, where we've had this explosion of high performance psychology, which is really about self-discovery and training your mind to manage stress. So I would say find a sport performance psychologist in your area, get on the phone with them, find the telepsychology approaches. It's a great time to invest in it. And if that's not affordable or that's not available, there are plenty of breathing apps. There's one that I'm connected to called Breathwork, breath and then WRK. It's free, and it'll walk you through the mechanics of effective breathing. I think it's an incredible resource. And, there's lots of stuff. There's lots of resources online as well.
Okay. And then one more question related to that, just for someone who's saying, I get what you two are saying. I know these things I need to do, but I just feel like I'm drowning. I can't stop checking social media. It's all right for you and everyone else, but my situation is X. So I can't, just sit back and breathe, because what if this happens? And, really seeing it as, my situation just that's not going to work. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, they're probably right. Mm-hmm. If that's the way that they're seeing it, they're probably right. And I say that because I don't argue with my clients. If they really want to see something a certain way, that's okay. They need to experience that. And unfortunately, that leads to an increase in suffering for people. But our job is not to convince or to kind of create a happy lane, but it's to embrace the experience that they're in and say, okay, if that's how you want to see it, let's, how do you think this is going to play out? And then it usually doesn't play out in the way that they want. And then so we say, okay, well, what would be an alternative? And so they say, well, I could try this breathing thing, okay. And so, the old saying, if you think you're right, or whether you think you're right, or you can or you can't, you're right. There's an old Zen koan that's really beautiful as well, is that there's a monk walking from village to village, and from the mountaintop, he came from the mountaintop, and he's going down into the village, and a passenger that's walking a little bit faster than him is passing him and says, and they strike up a conversation, and the monk says, where'd you come from? He says, from the village up in the mountaintop. And he says, I can't wait to get to the village down below. And the monk says, oh, okay, what was it like up at the mountaintop? And he says, it was awful. I was eating food that just tasted awful. They put me out in a barn, and I didn't have a comfortable place to sleep. And they were talking in a language I didn't understand, and I felt like a total outsider. And the traveler says, do you know anything about the village below? And the monk says, yeah, it's probably going to be much like the one you came from. The second traveler comes by and says, yeah, I was just up in the village in the mountain, and it was incredible. I ate new spices and foods, and I got to sleep with the animals in the barn. And it was this magical conversation, because I was trying to decipher this new language that I'd never heard before. And it was incredible. It was a lot of hard work, but man, I felt energized by it. Like, that was incredible. And so that traveler says, what do you think of the village down below? And he says, it's probably going to be much of the same. Mm. So it is your approach and outlook in life that really dictates your experience. And fear is real. It doesn't need to be permanent. Fear is contagious. It doesn't need to be permanent, but courage is also contagious, and so figuring out how to learn how to be in the present moment and to snap into mindsets of curiosity, of courage. And right now, your people need you. It's okay to have purpose right now, to be there for other people. You can have your purpose in life right now. It's fine. It's a beautiful time to have it. And so, yeah, we need you.
Thank you. Thank you. That is so good. And for anyone listening, I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode that we recorded a few months ago, a little bit of a different topic, but definitely will be helpful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you and your wisdom, and thanks for being vulnerable with us too. We appreciate you.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love your approach and your tone to it. And I want to say one more thing really quickly, if I could. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, more concretely, like if people could make a commitment to do a minimum of 12 breaths a day, and I would say 12 breaths, I would do sets and reps. I'd say 12 breaths in one sitting, maybe 5 times a day, or bunch them all together, and each breath takes about 16 seconds, 12 to 16 seconds. So big inhale, longer exhale, about 12, 16 seconds. If you can get to 12 in a row, and you got to work with it. It's like your mind is going to wander to stuff and just come back, and it's not like the idea is to have no thoughts, but it's just to work with your thoughts and guide your mind back to the present moment. That's a small 12 breath training. Each breath takes about 16 seconds. We're talking about something just around 2-3 minutes. If you could do a handful of those or stitch them all together at one sitting, it'd be massive. I think I'm probably taking 500 deep breaths a day, just to kind of work it, because there's all these external triggers and pings that are saying, hey, alert, stress. And I'm going, whoa, hold on. Let me go through the filter first. So, Tina, I'm wishing you and your community beautiful health, strength, and we need each other to demonstrate what strength looks like. And we don't feel strong. Part of strength is going to somebody in a vulnerable state and asking for help. And so I'm encouraged.
Yes.
I'm encouraged.
Thank you so much. My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. Oh, I just love that guy so much. And one day, by the way, we are going to be best friends. Him and I are going to be best friends. Don't know if you know that. I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. I really want him to be my best friend. But don't tell him that. This is embarrassing. I hope you enjoyed that episode. And I know that some of the things he said, if this is something you haven't ever worked on before, or you've kind of rolled your eyes at the things he was saying, it may seem like trivial. And how is breathing going to help me? And how am I going to make a difference by just, stepping back to breathe or writing it down? But give it a try. If you aren't ready to maybe go all in with kind of meditation and mindfulness, and as he said, your mind will wander when you do those breaths, and it's very easy to be judgmental of your brain when it's doing that. Trust me, I know. But try as hard as you can to not judge those thoughts, just notice them. And I would refer you back to the episode with Jeff Warren, which I will put a link in the show notes to go listen to if you do want to learn more about how to do this meditation thing, the breathing can help. But I know sometimes what he's saying can be a little bit it can seem a little bit too simple, like I mentioned about that person who says, okay, that's all right for everyone else to try this, but that doesn't work in my situation. And I know that, in many situations that is the case, that you do feel like, I don't see why I should even bother. That's not going to make a difference. But at least maybe try to get the 12 breaths that he mentioned. If you spread it out throughout the day, take 12 breaths of 12 to 16 seconds, and then just see where you feel from there. Now, he also mentioned about Talkspace, about the breath work, and I will put links to all of these things in the show notes, or, your local sports psychologist or performance psychologist. But I actually mentioned at the beginning, before we started recording, that I've reached out to every health psychologist, health professional, mental health professional I know, and asked them if they would be willing to kind of reach out to someone through email to just kind of check in, see how you're doing. So if you are having a hard time, go to tinamuir.com/support. And if you give me your email through that box that I'll put there for you, if you give me your email, then I will get them to reach out to you and check in with how you're doing, and just, just be a friend. I would love to be that friend for you. So you can feel free to use the contact form on my website, reach out to me, but I don't have the training or the expertise to be able to assist in the way that a professional would. So if you can't afford a counseling session, or it's a bit intimidating going to one of these websites, but you trust me and you trust these experts that I've had on, these are friends of mine. I trust them. I feel good about them. So go to tinamuir.com/support and I will pair you up with someone who will go check in on you. I know that's not much that I can be doing, and I wish that there was more, but I hope this episode has been helpful. Just a little mini one. As I said at the beginning, I'm thinking about doing this once a week, maybe just to check in on a Monday or Tuesday with how things are going, what the updates are for the week, and just kind of being there for you as best I can in this medium that I'm in. Also, we'll be doing lots more Facebook Lives, I think, within the Running for Real Superstars community. So if you haven't already joined that, you can go to tinamuir.com/superstars and you can come join us, and I will be jumping on there. And who knows how long I'll talk for, who knows what I'll talk about, but I think that's where I'll be sharing a lot of my feelings and my experiences. So my friends, this is a tough time. We know that. And if I can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. But in the meantime, I was honored that we were able to get this guy on the phone. You can only imagine how busy he's been stretched since I had him on the podcast in January. His brand, his business has exploded. Like, he is now working with Microsoft. He's going all over the world doing these presentations and just kind of working with brands on their strategies. And so we are really, really lucky to have had 20 minutes with him. I felt really fortunate and a little bit nervous, to be honest, because I feel like he's getting a bit big time, but for me to be in connection with. But it was wonderful to have him. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you are well, my friends. And I guess I'll see you on Friday for the episode with Rosalie Fish, who just has a very inspiring story to share. I will see you then. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.